So today, this was supposed to be a normal edition of the weekly news. Instead, we've got to have a bit of a serious talk. If I was being a bit stupid, I would call this video Content Cop, patch 11.1.5, because man, this is a bit of a mess. So, the What's New screen is there when you log in. It promises you with new content, a breath of life, a fresh one into the game, and all that good stuff. But not this time. This week has been an absolute disaster in almost every way possible. We've seen game-breaking bugs, a nigh unplayable patch day. It's really bad. The big new event that Blizzard, I assume, put effort into and marketed the shit out of is completely busted. This is ridiculous, and it's soon becoming, or I mean by now it's enough that you can't plot a trend line, this is kind of the new normal, and it needs to stop. It's gotten really, really bad. And here's to the people helping me keep the lights on, our sponsor, Pork Bun. They were named the #1 domain registrar by USA Today from 2023 through to 25, and if you've ever dealt with the usual suspects like GoDaddy, you'll soon know that Pork Bun is way less of a headache. They've got crazy low prices on hundreds of domain extensions. Yes, you've got your classic ones like .com, but you've got more modern options like .dev, .pro, .xyz, that kind of thing, which honestly, I think are way more characterful. So whether you're building a blog, a brand, a portfolio, they've got something that will fit. And here's what's awesome. Every domain comes with a ton of freebies, and these are things that other registrars will usually upcharge you for. Things like Whois privacy, SSL certificates, web and email hosting trials, basically stuff you really do want, but that others use as a sneaky upcharge. Their site is super clean, it's super easy to use, and their support is top tier. It's real people, 365 days a year. They have got more 5-star reviews than anyone else, so if you are building anything online, Pork Bun makes it easy and affordable to get started. Plus, you'll get $1 off your next domain with the link and code in the description. So, big thanks to Pork Bun for supporting the channel, and let's get to the video. First things first, Nightfall. Are you enjoying your 15 minutes of desperately trying to tag mobs because objectives won't spawn? Yeah, if you're confused and you just sort of think, what's going on with Nightfall? Why is it like this? Well, it's not supposed to be. You're supposed to have little sub-objectives to go and do, just like time rifts and other stuff like, say, the Tuskar soup. In fact, we've had problems like this before. Namely, with the Tuskar soup. 2.5 years ago, we were complaining about the community soup event in Iskara not properly giving out objectives, right? Those are the little tasks that you go and do during an event, and now that same thing is happening with the Nightfall. And guess what? It also happened before with time rifts, and if this trend is anything to go by, it'll probably happen again in Midnight. It's ridiculous, and it's left the event not functioning, right? And that leaves an awful first impression, and those impressions matter. If people are marketed to come back, especially if they've spent money to do so, and things like this are busted, what does that tell them? And this is becoming the same problem every time. Blizzard do not design their world events for the number of players that do them. They just keep on doing the same thing and expecting different results, which... yes, as you know, people will commonly say, that's the definition of insanity. It's just a really stupid situation. I mean, even when you are just trying to grind out mobs, those mobs have got health that's often scaled for, like, solo people content, not a situation where you've got 40 people who are there killing stuff. We're in an event that is supposed to be us pushing back some brutal invasion by these die-hard Sareki loyalist people. What's the gameplay? Well, the actual gameplay is just pray to God you can hit an ability fast enough to catch a tag before the mobs die, and there's basically no mobs for people to kill. It's ridiculous. And this time the event's honestly even worse. People are reporting that the event is literally breaking. As an example, on Thursday night in our server, it was stuck for an hour because the boss just didn't spawn. And that's not even to mention how Hallowfall lags beyond belief when players flock to it, something that we've seen as a really big problem in Undermine as well. Fighting a boss is not fun when you just cannot use your abilities. Everything's on like a 3-second, lag madness. It feels awful. And you just end up slowly, like, doing a third of the DPS you should while a boss, like, dies, and you don't really have any engagement in the mechanics at all, because it's basically non-functional as a video game. This is just broken. And of course, if you're lucky, you can still progress, but it's not fun, right? Without objectives reliably spawning, all you can do is tag and hope for the best. And our whole thing with being in war mode, or at least on a different shard, right now doesn't really seem to help with that. It's frustrating. I mean, we did that guide video yesterday. Banging guide, by the way. Definitely use it whenever Blizzard inevitably fixes this event, and it works as it should. But right now, all we can do is wait until Blizzard fixes this. And of course, by the time those fixes come, first impressions will already have been formed. And the bad news for Blizzard is, there is far more broken than just the, main day one feature. You may not have noticed this, but the Liberation of Undermine is broken. Not massively, but raid renown shot up for some players for no reason, letting people max out their renowns and giving them all the rewards, like the mount, the teleport, and all that stuff, for a while until it was fixed. Even things like the damage and healing buff were impacted. The raid skip was also broken on launch. It appeared to be straight up removed. Blizzard did patch it back in fairly quickly, but that's not a good experience. It shouldn't be like that. And Blizzard didn't patch it in as quickly as people noticed that their great vaults were also broken, because for a bunch of people, the vault offered the same rewards as it did last week. Literally the exact same items. And worse yet, Blizzard said that they could not fix that retroactively, so if you got a busted vault, too bad. Screw you for, putting time and effort into the game. That's bad. And this did get fairly serious as well. Some people found their characters were just not being found for an entire day. So, when you try to log in, it says character not found. There you go. You just can't play for a bit. So that's bad. I mean, it's patch day and your character just stops existing. Not convenient. So whatever Blizzard did here with this build is goddamn catastrophic. PTR is good for testing some things. It's very obvious now that PTR is not so good at testing other things, because we have had constant patches with major week one issues. And of course, the issues don't just stop here. Blizzard also somehow even broke the personal resource display, which just isn't displaying buffs anymore. And that's actually not all. That's not to mention build changes introducing some insane bugs to add-ons. This may have happened to you if you logged in patch day with the Opie add-on installed. Brilliant add-on, by the way. But if you did that, you couldn't click anything. You just couldn't. Every mouse click was blocked. And yes, that is an interaction with an add-on, so it is an edge case, and Blizzard's not fully culpable, but it's something that's happened to a lot of people, and it is not a good day one experience. And if you're a demon hunter, well, you were just nerfed for a few days. So, yeah, that's cool. But hey, serves us right for being flavor of the month. But yes, imagine you log in patch day and there's an undocumented change that took a massive chunk out of your class's damage. That's what happened. Aldrachi Reaver's single target debuff was not stacking like it used to, which, takes a huge chunk of priority damage out of your AoE. Now, this is fixed. But again, it's another thing that needed to be fixed. It's another thing that was broken. Another example, a harmless enough one, is the Deep Breath Reticle for Evokers being fixed, which isn't a major problem, right? But it is just evidence of chaos. And look, development on a live game is hard, right? I don't know what network engineers run on, but it is special stuff. So I am sympathetic to there being bugs, there being problems, but this is too much. And it's not just this. There's also all of the chaos that Blizzard threw onto the pile, very much, of their own decision. How do you like FPS? Would you like less of it? Because that's kind of happened. So in patch 11.1, Blizzard took the first step on a journey that's actually quite good, that I could say is to save your frame rate from add-ons, which basically was the add-on profiling. But, I suppose as anyone who's cracked open the profiler in, their development environment of choice, there was some collateral damage. The add-on profiler that tracks how much damage add-ons are doing to your frame rate and stuff, that they were doing a bunch of profiling. If you know anything about profiling code, you'll know that it's a fairly expensive thing to be doing. So expensive, actually, I mean expensive in compute terms, that people were finding that their performance basically would drop with this on, and they would get an extra 20 or so frames a second in raids by turning the add-on profiling off. So what Blizzard did in this patch was to force it back on and remove the option to turn it off. Smart! Great move! Fantastic. Yes, wonderful. I can see how this is helpful to everyone. What gives? I mean, maybe people can fiddle around with CVARs and stuff to turn that off again, but this is pig-headed. This is very, very silly. You should not be doing this. I mean, WoW is an insanely hard game to run in raids and packed world events. I mean, Blizzard servers die. We get wacky stuff where, World of Warcraft runs on anything, but it doesn't run well on anything. Actually, fairness, runs pretty damn good on the Apple Silicon. But that's kind of besides the point. This is just a stupid L that they did not need to take. And I wish I had a solution for you, but until Blizzard figures something out, the answer here is, you're left with profiling on. So I guess uninstall your WeakOrs and upgrade your PC. Thumbs up. But guess what? I can do something better. I can make this a human interest story. So, Matt, of course, one of the fellas in our team, he's been having a lovely time. This stuff with performance got so bad that he just rage bought an 8900 X3D, basically the best gaming CPU on the market. Currently, his main hope is that this means he can record raid or dungeon footage of a high enough quality that we're not ashamed of putting it in videos. But this is just silly. This is a needless L. You don't need to take away people's frames. I mean, if you look at, say, recent video Quasi did, like a month ago or something, on getting the best FPS in WoW, like massive views in that video, that shows us something. People are hungry for better performance in WoW. And bringing this all together, there's a goddamn simple question. What the hell is going on with this game? It has been multiple patches in a row of weird bollocks. So let's tackle that. Obviously, without actually being in Blizzard, it's impossible to say directly, but there's a lot that we actually can say. This kind of patch launch is pure chaos. Some of these issues were in the public test realm, but not all of them. Blizzard clearly does not test properly. But that's something we've known about for years. However, the thing now is it seems to be getting much, much, much worse. If we look at the kind of content in this patch and the time gating, it is something, well, I mean, basically, there's hubris going on. I know they have their 8-week patch cycle, their 18-month expansion cycle, and they feel that if something gets delayed a month, it has a horrendous cascading effect. But they are not respecting reality. Reality matters because that's what your customers actually buy access to with their World of Warcraft subscription fee. Whenever you ask someone for money, especially if it's tied to something new, you really want that new thing to actually be good and be functional. That's not the case. The people who are making and locking into plans at Blizzard are not respecting the realities of software development, which is what this is. They're also not respecting the realities of good game development practice, I would say. It very much seems that people just are able to pitch for whatever feature, perhaps for a patch, and because of time constraints, they choose an idea, they just go make it. Probably not much room for, say, prototyping or having multiple ideas, bringing them forward, each one for a few weeks, and then deciding on what to build. That's a larger problem in the scope of this video, but seriously, we are getting content that is making one think of slop, and that's not a good thing. Now, what you do notice is they have enough devs to make tons of art assets, right? They have enough gameplay designers to give us things like Nightfall, more importantly, to fix up horrific visions, to give us dastardly duos, all those things, all while working perhaps on class changes for 11.1.7. 11.1.7, by the way, on the PTR soon. 11.1, I think, was a genuinely excellent patch overall. It had a great raid, had great dungeons. They're handling Season 2 way better. There's fun enough new world stuff. Drive, I think, was really successful as an experiment. All this stuff while working on Midnight, while working on, The Last Titan. There's a lot of shit going on. They're busy. And by the time you watch this video, 11.1.7 may literally be live in the PTR. It'll probably have a bunch of newsworthy things. Maybe class changes, transmogs, whatever the new story is going to be. That's great and all. But if this is the price that we pay, it is not worth it. And in this case, it's clear the problems lie in tech and testing. Now, it would be very easy to say, they fired all the QA, and I think some stuff like that did happen, right? There was bad stuff. But it's actually not just a problem with QA. QA is really important, yes, and it will find lots of bugs. But what really I think about is what is the state of Blizzard's automated testing? And look, maybe it's the case they budgeted too much engineer time over to player housing systems, right? That's all tooling in the engine. Maybe they've lost too many of their engineers, people with institutional knowledge, like say Orlando Salvatore, right? He's one example. He was mostly known for making Classic possible. He was on the, the live gameplay team that was doing like your Plunder Storms and your, MOP remix events. But he's gone, along with all the knowledge that was in his head. That's just one example. So it's obvious that under the hood, WoW as a technical product is struggling deeply. And we have no idea if Blizzard have any plans to solve it, or if they can solve it, and we haven't really seen them properly acknowledge this. Two final points though. First, this is too regular. We all joke about how the McDonald's McFlurry machines are broken all of the time, but in this case, Blizzard, this is not your McFlurry machine. This is your fryers and your grills breaking down, so you can't do Big Macs anymore. This is your core product. This is really serious. The second point is, yes, they do almost pretend this doesn't happen. They are quiet as a whole. They'll address some specific bugs, but the overall elephant in the room is not properly being talked about with the community. And it's bad that as all of this happens, we get more store mounts, more consumption opportunities. They're happy to post a 40% off sale, inviting players to come back and enjoy the XP catch-up event while they're putting some, ravens that you can buy in the store. All of this stuff, big business event. But guess what? That feels really, really tone deaf. And yes, we all know these are different teams, but you guys do your own milestones, and it looks bad to players when Blizzard as a whole is kind of just spitting at us. Because whenever you are doing more asks for currency, that's fine if it is being backed up with a good quality service. This is not a good quality service. This has happened every patch for the last while. It's actually seeming to get worse and worse. Patch day is not exciting anymore. It is assigned to do a little bit of faffing about and then log out and wait, especially now with the time gating. And that's been our guild anyway. Like as an example, the Oblivion remasters there. There's Expedition 33. I'm actually playing a lot of Minecraft in favor of World of Warcraft outside of raid logging. And it's because I could be doing this new event, but it's an awful experience. I'm not going to do that until it's fixed. And I'm just tired of this. And it's simply not a transitory thing. At worst, this patch could have been a bit disappointing because of time gating and stuff, but this just looks incompetent, and that breaches trust. That breaches trust in a deep level, because if you're good people who make a whoopsie, that's understandable. But if there's a pattern of behavior that suggests incompetence, that is more deeply existentially worrying because, well, incompetence kind of can't be fixed. You can't just do a total brain transplant, right? That shatters people's belief that it's even worth carrying, right? That causes apathy. Take the cooldown manager. We'll do a full breakdown of that next week, but honestly, it's half-cooked, right? It's half-cooked. We'll have ways to make the best use of it, and maybe one or two little light touch add-ons that make it even better, more usable, whatever. But despite all the chatter in forums and taking on feedback and solving problems, it's unusable for half the specs. It's straight out broken for some specs. And perhaps the most tragic thing, the real new feature, Horrific Visions, that's not out for a month. Right? It's not out for a month. And guess what? Whenever it does come out, do you think people who have just been treated to all of this are going to be excited? Maybe they'll just skip it. And that makes me sad because it's brilliant. It's a bunch of game designers coming together and making a really cool game within a game in World of Warcraft. That's the shit I live for. It actually does anger me that those people's work, that game design, will be sabotaged by poor quality of service and what by now is obviously an unrealistic strategy. Things happen at 3 levels: the strategic level, the operational level, and the tactical level. I think they have a solid strategy. That's the expansion cycle being a bit more brisk. That's the patch cycle being a bit more brisk. And they can be good in the tactical level, like with Season 2, changing it week by week. But I think Blizzard's real problems exist in the operational level, because the execution of your tactics serves your operational goals, which then feed in to your strategic goals. If any link in that chain is broken, you do not achieve your strategic goals. And especially for people who are STEM trained, like myself, who naturally think in systems, who are naturally strategic, Well, sometimes our heads get lost in the clouds, and we don't think enough about implementation and reality. Seems that's Blizzard's problem. And, well, that's it for this special edition of the WoW News. There will be another one tomorrow. And look, you should arm yourself with knowledge whenever this is fixed. And that's why you should watch our guide to get the absolute most out of Nightfall, because whenever these fixes are done, with that guide, your progress will basically be twice as fast.